Pakula with Momentum Physical Therapy here in Bozeman, Montana. And if you're like most of us now, we are doing workouts from home, not at our gyms or studios. And the Mountain Project has been phenomenal in releasing some home workouts for us. What I'm hoping to do here is provide some common corrections and things to look out for with some of these movements, since you don't have your coaches with you right now guiding you. So things to watch for, things to check your form, and then some corrections. I'm also linking to a short mobility routine that you could perform before or after these workouts. So what we want to be aware of, first of all, is our general alignment. So if you have a mirror in the space you're working out, that would be fantastic to be able to check your form. If you don't, sometimes even just using your phone and videoing yourself for a few seconds and then checking the video would be a great way to do it, or just have the screen on live and face towards you, kind of like how I'm videoing this series right now, and you can see what's happening in real time and make corrections if you don't have a mirror. So starting with the side plank. On your side, elbows directly under your shoulder. Not out here, not way under. Directly under your shoulder. Legs are out straight, pushing down through the elbow, and then looking at your torso and your legs. We want to pretend like we're between two planes or plates of glass, right? We're all in line. We're not tipping forward like this. We're not rocking back. We're not dropping our hips down. Knees are straight, quads are engaged, glutes are lightly engaged, and continually pushing down through that elbow, squeezing through the obliques on the underside. Also remembering to take full deep breaths as you're going through this. Okay, next one is a plank walk. So being in a plank position, again starting so your body is in one long line, hands are underneath the shoulders, again, not too far out in front, not way under your shoulders. So there's a perpendicular line from your arm to the ground. Then we're going to look at hips. So we don't want to be sagging our hips. You also don't want to be having the banana type shape here. So no banana, no hammock, okay? Checking your form, using that mirror or your camera. Then doing the plank walks. We're trying to limit the amount of rocking that is happening from the pelvis. So lowering down and then coming back up, pretending like we have a cup of water here on our low back, and we don't want to spill it. So you might be moving slowly, methodically, but we want to avoid the massive rocking of the whole torso and pelvis. Okay, now we're going to move on to bird dogs. So starting on hands and knees, again, you're going to hear this over and over. Hands directly under the shoulder, thigh or femur directly under, knee's going to be directly under your hip. Okay, you're not going to be cranked in, stepped away in like this. You don't want legs really far behind you. So you want that perpendicular line from the floor to the femur. Same thing with the arm. Then we want to be having a normal breath, relaxed breath, not brace, so we can't take a full inhale or exhale. You're going to be extending opposite arm and leg. Commonly what we see here is people either lifting that leg super far, lifting it higher than it needs to be, so you're getting additional extension through the low back, which isn't necessary. Or we see the knee bent and the leg kind of just hanging out. Want the knee straight, quad engaged, glute engaged, and reaching long and strong in front of you. Again, full inhales and exhales. Some things I also see is when people have their neck cranked up to see what's going on. Ideally, we want to have the spine in one line. Okay, now we're moving on to a single leg squat. Some of the common errors we see with this is that we go for depth versus correct form. And when we go for depth versus ideal form, what we see is oftentimes the knee goes into a medial drift, goes towards the inside, the midline, versus having the knee, ankle, and hip nice and lined up under the shoulders and torso. So let's see if I can do this here. There we go. So you think about pushing the knee out to the side slightly. You're going to be feeling this work in the gluteus medius as well when you are really focusing on that ideal alignment versus letting the knee drift. So a great way to do this is go as far as you can with correct form. Form trumps the depth of the single leg squat. So now we're going to be looking at single leg hip bridge. Straightening one leg out, and as you lift up, we want to think about that pelvis being level. So parallel to the ground. Common errors are letting that hip, let me demonstrate it on this side, letting the hip drop, letting the pelvis drop. So again, pushing up, looking down, even to check your form here. And can you rest something on your pelvis? Is it parallel to the ground? Okay, now we're going to be looking at a single leg deadlift. And to begin with this, I want to do a quick demo of something that we call a hip hinge, which is a component of both a traditional deadlift or a single leg deadlift. So taking a dowel behind your back, so we have 3 points of contact, one at the low back, one at the thoracic spine, and one at the base of the head. So we're keeping those 3 points of contact, and what we're going to do is have soft knees. Knees are not locked. Weight is in the heels, and we're just going to be hinging at the hips. That means we're maintaining these 3 points of contact. If I hinge forward and I start rounding and my hand comes away from the low back, we can see that more of the movement is coming from the lumbar spine or the low back versus from that hip hinge. And with a deadlift, we really want to focus on the hip hinge. So this can be a nice kind of primer or warm up to that movement, or if you feel like you struggle with deadlifts or single leg deadlifts, this can be a nice movement to practice to help fine tune your form. Points of contact as you hinge forward and as you come back up. Again, form over the depth of the movement. And then we'll demo this on the other side. Again, those 3 points of contact. And then once you feel like you have that down, then you can move towards adding dumbbells. Next one is a donkey kick. So again, starting in the same position as the bird dog. Hands directly under the shoulders, perpendicular to the ground, femur or your thigh, perpendicular to the ground, okay? You're extending your leg out, bending the knee, and then you're maintaining that what we call a neutral spine position. You're kicking the heel up towards the ceiling. So for many of us, depending on our hip extension or how far we can bring our thigh behind our hip or our pelvis, is going to determine how much range of motion we have. I do not have much. So you will see that I will not be able to move very far before my lumbar spine starts moving. Okay, so I can go to about yay. And if I move farther than that, then that motion is coming from extension of my lumbar spine versus just that glute working and creating that hip extension. It's common when we're doing a donkey kick, so my right leg is lifted and pushing towards the ceiling, is to shift our weight over to that opposite side, as opposed to keeping our shoulders and our whole torso parallel to the ground. So think about pushing really strong into the side that's opposite the supporting leg, if that makes sense. All right, I hope those were helpful for you. If you have any specific questions, please contact me. My information will be added below in the comments. If you have specific requests on movements that you'd like to know a little bit more about, feel free to contact me and I can do a video on that as well. I hope everyone is staying well, continuing with their workouts, and staying healthy.